Grandpa. There was ill feelings, you know, and who was going to take care of her? Who was going to take care of her, you know? They were married about a year after my father died, and then Grandma and them moved up to Yale, and we followed. I don't know, so there was still some ties there, you know. But later on, there was a sort of I think because my stepfather was a drinker, and they resented him, you know. My father didn't drink, and there could have been better circumstances. 2 years.
What did your mother look like at this time?
Well, through the years, she got heavier. She got heavier.
But she was still pretty.
Yes, she was. I can remember when everybody was bobbing their hair, cutting their hair. I can't remember the year. And she cut her hair, and for 3 days she wore, you know, these duster caps, you know, because she was afraid to let my stepfather know that she had cut her hair. Yeah, that was all. I can remember, too, on this here place that we lived, how we'd work in the sugar beets.
Well, let's start that. Let's start that.
Well, the fella came. He was an
before
agent.
we do that,
Yes.
I want to take you back to when you were about 6 years old, and your.
Oh, Grandma.
Yeah, that's one story I don't want them to miss.
Okay.
This is your great
My
grandmother.
great grandmother. She lived with Grandma and Grandpa Walls, and she was getting a little senile, and she had a habit with anybody that ate there or anything like that, and they left some little pieces of bread, she would put them into her pocket, and they would be dry, and we kids would follow her, run after her, and she would call that hasebrot, rabbit bread. And boy, she'd handle that all out to us. Sometimes there was little fuzzes and hair on it, but you know, we enjoyed it. We thought that was really from the rabbit. We'd follow her around.
How old did she live?
How long did she live? She died just before we moved to Milwaukee, which was 1921.
And she would have been how old, would you think?
I have no idea. I have no idea how old she'd be. I think someplace I may have a record of how old she was, but right now I can't remember. I remember when she died, or when she was sick. This is a funny story, too. When she was sick, Grandma came over, and she had things to take care of. I don't know where Grandpa was. Maybe he had a job or something. He couldn't be there. But Grandma came over and wanted to know if somebody had come over. So I was chosen to come over there. Grandma was dead in the bedroom there. Yes. Do you remember that, me telling you?
I remember you telling me that.
Sure, and I would sit there and I'd look in there like that and turn my head back. I was so scared.
How old were you?
7, 8, just before we came to Milwaukee.
So this was when your Grandma Dowman died.
Right, yeah. And they made, Uncle Adolf had the butcher shop, but you know, they all did their own carpentry and things like that. They made her coffin. Well, lo and behold, they made it too small. And they tried to squeeze her in, and Grandma wouldn't stand for that. She says, no. She says, you have to make another one. So this is true. It's true. And then they made another coffin for her. And later on, my brother Andy was out to Uncle Hint's one time. He was helping them thrash and things like that. And he said something about he had to have something for his hogs, for watering the hogs. And he says, up on the rafters, up in the garage or in the shed someplace, he says, you will find a coffin up there. That was your grandma's. And he says, I couldn't let that go to waste because I can use it. So he says, will you bring that down? We can use that to water the hogs. And Andy talked about that not too long ago. He says, yes, it's true. It was true. But I remember that they made it the coffin too small. Those things stick with you in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Now we can go back.
Then we went to Milwaukee.
Mm-hmm. You were how old when you came to Milwaukee?
I was 8, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I know not long after that there was.
Did you go to school in South Dakota at all?
Yes, I went to a school when we lived in Freeman. Before we moved up, we went to a German school. I can remember that.
And they spoke nothing but German?
Nothing but German, right? Mm-hmm. Yes, after we came to Milwaukee, in this, it seemed like there was a lot of German people from Freeman or people here would gather together and, you know, visit back and forth in each home because that's the only entertainment they had, Tadieski and things like that. But mostly, some man went around to hire people, or he was an agent that worked for the sugar beet companies, and he would try to get people to come and work the land. You'd go to this place that they furnished, you had a home, and you stayed there till the stages of the farming of the sugar beets, and then we'd come there in May, and we'd leave in late October to come back. But we did that for 5 years.
And the whole family would work?
The whole family, well, the ones that could work. Me and Fred were the oldest. We'd do the thinning. My father and mother, stepfather, and they would, there was a row of the beets. And then they would take their hoe and make us watch about that far and leave a little place about, you know, that was real small, had maybe 3 or 4, and me and Fred would go behind and just see that one was. We'd pick out those stray ones because the beets grow big, and the one would, you know, could make it. So, and there was 4 stages. There was the first thinning, then there was the second, the third was the easiest, and then there was the fourth where they would, where the farmers would come and dig them up, and we would take them and bunch them, you know, and throw them into a cinder.
Check off the mud?
Yeah. And then from there we'd grab a hold of it, you know, after that we'd go there and we'd chop off the thing and then put them on another pile, and then the farmer would come and pick them up to take them to the sugar beet, where they make the sugar. Mm-hmm. And that was our job.
Were your hands red all the time?
Red? They were cold in winter. We were there when the beets started to get ice on them already, or frost, and the gloves would get so wet, then you'd freeze. There was hard work, but there was times for fun too, because in between we would have maybe a week or so that we didn't have much to do. My mother was a very playful person. I mean, she always liked to play games with us. She'd make these little jacks, and, you know, we'd out of pig knuckles. Everything was made, you know. She would do a little beading work. She would go swimming. One time we had a big rain, and she was a good swimmer. The creek was all filled, you know, and she would show us how to swim. Didn't have swimming suits. Easter time.
Skinny dipping?
No, we had clothes on. We had clothes on. The Easter egg, she was coming from Russia. She would make these Easter eggs. I can remember one time the doors were locked and we couldn't figure out what was going on, you know. And we'd knock and knock. Finally, we saw her sitting, you know, in a corner someplace there. And she tried to do this work without us knowing about it. She would do everything, all these little tricks that, you know, that I
Yeah, show me that. Wait just a second. Let's see if I can get that close up on your hands.
Yeah.
Okay. Wait. Lift it up a little bit, Mom. Lift them up. That's it. Now show me. You grandchildren, remember that.
Yeah.
Grandma losing her thumb.
And then the string game, you know, with the string and things like that. My mother could do anything. I always say knitting, crocheting. She'd even crochet and sell it in the stores in Freeman and things like that. I can remember that. Clothes. We never had a bought dress. Always homemade. knitting, crocheting, like I said.
So you were happy, even though you were
Oh,
poor.
yes, and she played right along, ball and everything she'd play with us.
Mm-hmm.